How do, guys? I think most of you already know, recently there was a guy who was attacked outside of the Turkish consulate in London whilst he attempted to burn a Quran by a man with a knife, and he was also kicked by a Deliveroo rider as well. This story has just got an interesting twist to it, and I think once again shows that and highlights the two-tiered system in our system, and how the state does actually prioritise certain crimes which most people wouldn't consider to be as serious over more serious crimes, which most of us would be quite shocked and appalled to see happen in front of us. I haven't said this phrase in a long time, and I think I do need to start saying it again, which is don't listen to what they say, look at what they do. That is one of the most important things you can do when you're analysing these things. Look at the actual actions. I mean, I'm not saying don't disregard what they say as well. You know, there is a lot of importance, but again, as I've shown before, like recently with the nuclear announcement from Labour, when they're talking about things like that, what they're actually doing is admitting other things unintentionally sometimes. So there's a lot of games to be played with that, but actions you can't really hide. You know, if the police are going out and say they start arresting just purely gay people, and they start going house to house arresting gay people, you can take it as pretty clad stone that that government is very, very homophobic and very against gay people. Nobody would deny that. It would be pretty obvious, no matter what even if they said, no, we support gay people. If they were going around arresting gay people and then putting them in prison for no other reason than being gay, it would be safe to assume that government was very, very homophobic. And that's what you need to do with these things as well. So let's get on with this story, and we'll have a bit of a talk as we get through it. I will share the story below, so if you want to read it yourself, please do. Make your own mind up. Don't just listen to what I say. You know, this is my interpretation. By all means, please do make your own mind up and come to your own conclusions. But I do think what I'm saying is correct. So, 2 charged after Quran burning incident outside the Turkish consulate. 2 people have been charged after a video emerged appearing to show a man burning a Quran and another man allegedly attacking him outside the Turkish consulate in Knightsbridge. I would personally say it's not alleged. I think it's pretty obvious watching the video that he is being attacked. That's my personal opinion. I don't think there's any alleged. No, I'm not going to say any more than that in regards to that, because I believe it is an ongoing case. Well, the actual case itself isn't really what I'm trying to talk about here. It's more the wider implications of the system itself. Social media footage showed a man being kicked on the ground by a knife-wielding attacker. Yeah, well, he also got kicked by a Deliveroo rider as well. I think it was Deliveroo anyway, or it might have been Uber Eats. Something like that. You know those people who rides around on a bike. He's probably an illegal immigrant, and it's probably not even him on the account. Now, that is obviously my own conjecture, my own guesswork, but that seems to be the modus operandi a lot of these people. So, Hamit Koskun, 50, from Derby, has been charged with a religiously aggravated public order offence after he was filmed apparently burning the book in Rutland Gardens on Thursday, the Metropolitan Police said. Again, I don't think there's any alleged about it. Watching the video, you can clearly see the book is on fire and there's smoke coming off it. This sort of pathetic wordplay. I know they talk about perjury of cases and stuff, but I think some things are so goddamn obvious that you can't really perjure a case or mess up a case, because you can see it in the footage. He's burning the book. It's undeniable, in my opinion. Well, that's the legal system we have. He was remanded in custody, and that's the important part. He's been remanded in custody, which means he's going to wait in cells until he goes to court. And will appear before Westminster Magistrates Court on Saturday. Now, this is a reason as well, going to and this is why I'm raising this, because with a lot of the people who were involved in the riots that came after the Southport massacre of those poor little children. I'll share a video below with the actual live court updates of a journalist who was in there. Very, very shocking stuff, that. A lot of those people who were arrested after that for seeing things online, a lot of them pled guilty because they were being remanded in court and their court cases were being delayed for months and months on end. So a lot of these people were thinking, well, if I plead guilty, now I'm guessing here, but I think they were being advised, well, if you plead guilty, you'll get let out a lot earlier. And really, they haven't been. They've actually had the dirty done to them, and they've been poorly advised, in my opinion. So, you know, like I do think remanding people is actually a tactic used by the court system to penalise and persecute people that the state finds distasteful. But they haven't done anything that bad, so to speak. Like one of the guys from the Southport riots, he did say some pretty, like one of the guys, he was talking about like burning down mosques and stuff. Now, I don't agree with that, by the way. We're very clear on that. That's absolutely shocking to say that, and it's not something I would personally say. However, nothing happened from it. And you could say, yeah, well, he was inciting violence, but it's like, well, what did he actually incite? Where's the evidence that he incited anything? Who did he incite? Where were the mosques being burnt down? You know, that nothing happened from him saying that. And yeah, it was a horrible thing for him to say, and he shouldn't say that. However, he shouldn't have got 2 to 3 years in prison for it. You know, when there's guys who've actually molested little children from the Pakistani community who have got less time in prison than he has. And this is the problem that we're seeing with these sorts of crimes, you know. So all I can take from that is the system finds him saying, burn a mosque down. I want to repeat that. Don't do that. Do not say that online. You know, don't make those threats. You know, and be very, very clear. If you say it like I've said it now, be very, very clear that you do not encourage that. And I'm not just saying it's pay lip service to it either. I mean, really mean that. I genuinely mean that. Don't say that stuff. You know, you don't do that. That's not how a civilized society functions, guys. You know, that leads to anarchy and chaos. You know, that's not what we want. Whereas, obviously, little children getting raped, not only did they cover up those crimes, but then they're giving them lighter sentences for it. You know, the only thing you can read from that is the state obviously prefers one crime over another. You know, they obviously prefer little white girls being raped to white people saying burn down mosques. That is the only thing, because this isn't just a one-off thing that's happening. This is repeatedly happening, as we're going to see in a second now. So anyway, so Musa Kadri, 59, from Kensington and Chelsea, has been charged with causing actual bodily harm. So it appears that he has actually hurt him. I don't think I think... Again, I'm not 100% certain, but I think actual bodily harm isn't as serious as it sounds. So I think if somebody just like smacks you across the face, that's actual bodily harm. Whereas I think grievous bodily harm would be if he'd actually stabbed him. Now if I'm wrong there, somebody correct me, but I think that's correct in what I'm saying. And possession of an offensive weapon. Now, I would say, personally, with an offensive weapon with intent to kill, because he was trying to slash him in the video. Now, was it committed? I don't think it was overly committed. You know, the guy was led on the floor, you know, and he was sort of waving the knife around. It seemed more threatening and intimidatory than actually committed at the time. I mean, he could have very easily have stabbed him when he was on the floor, you know, but the fact of the matter is it only takes a moment of madness or lack of control, and that knife he could have even just tripped and stabbed him, you know, so that is an intent to kill, even if he didn't mean to directly murder him. There was definitely an intent there, or at least an intent to cause serious harm, because the fact he's waving it around, even if he was only doing it to threaten and intimidate, could still result in somebody causing grievous bodily harm to somebody. So in my opinion, that is an intent to cause grievous bodily harm, even if he wasn't actually trying to stab him. Just through engaging in those activities is an intention of itself, which can lead to grievous bodily harm. So I would say if you're doing an intention which could potentially, and he knows that could have slashed him up. So that to me says it's an intent to cause that result. You know, now I'm sure there's plenty of legal professionals who would disagree with me on that. But again, this is where the state isn't, and we saw this with the rape gangs, where not one of the rape gangs was ever charged with like religiously or racially motivated crimes either. And we seem to be seeing, and this is the problem that we're seeing, that we have a man here who's burnt a Quran. Nobody's been hurt from that. Yeah, it's offensive. Yeah, I don't recommend people burn a Quran. You know, I don't like mass Islamic immigration into Europe. It doesn't mean you should burn the books. You know, that is just needlessly stupid, and it's going to cause, I mean, that is the sort of stuff that can cause mass riots. Is that what you really want? I don't want that. I'm not saying people should riot over a Quran being burned, but you know, it's like, I would love to go into to Africa and stroke a wild lion. You know, go to a big lion's mane and rub my face in it and be like, oh, look at you, you big furry bastard. I'd love that. But what's going to happen if I do that? I'm going to get mauled to death and eaten by the goddamn lion. It doesn't matter what I want. It doesn't matter that my intention's not to get mauled to death and eaten. The reality is that it's going to happen. You know, it's expectations versus reality. He might not want big, massive riots to erupt from his actions, but that's what can happen. You've got to be realistic about this. And not just that, but why be needlessly antagonistic as well? What's he achieving by doing that? Nothing. All that's going to happen is people like ITV News and BBC are going to be like, look at this far-right bigot. You're just giving ammunition to the people who hate Britain to show, look how hateful and racist Britain is. You know, it's stupid. It's actually counterproductive and stupid, which is why Tommy Robinson's such a retard as well, because he's needlessly antagonistic. And it just makes patriotic people look stupid and unhinged. You know, and you can say, well, they're doing this, they're doing that, you know, the other side, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. At the end of the day, the media, the news, politicians, people of influence, blah, 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 all those groups are behind those people who hate Britain and engage in anti-Western activities. And that's the reality, and you've got to accept it. We're not in a position of strength to be able to do things like that and get away with it, I'm afraid. And like this guy here, and carrying on with this Musa Kadri, a line after that, he was bailed and will appear at the same court on Monday. So a man who has burnt a Quran is held in custody. He's not allowed out. His freedom has been taken away from him. Whereas the man who attacked him with a knife and kicked him is free on the streets. Now, I don't care what legal justifications people give me for that, because at the end of the day, that's all just BS and obfuscation. You know, you can come out with a perfectly coherent argument as to why children should be allowed to engage in intimate activities with adults. But you know what? I don't care what your arguments are. You know, I care about the fact that it's disgusting, and that's all that matters. You know, it's the same with this. You've got a man who burnt a book versus a man who tried to attack him with a knife. Now, the reality is the man who attacked him with a knife should be the one who's on remand, and the man who burnt a book should be waiting but free, you know, to go to court. That's how it should be. But it's not. Why is that? Well, the only conclusion I can come to is the state obviously finds burning a Quran far worse than a man trying to stab him with a knife. That's the reality of it. And we've got mountains of evidence to support this. Because I doubt if it was a Bible or that he'd burnt, that he'd be in custody. I doubt that very much. It seems to be that the British state has got a particular penchant for Muslims and Islam. Now, why is that? I've discussed that in plenty of videos before. I do think a big part of this is about the government being terrified, and the state, of an uprising of nationalism in the West. We've seen this with things like the IRA. Now, the IRA were only a very small percentage of people in Northern Ireland, less than 1%. But look at the carnage they caused. And the government will be making risk assessments and going, well, you know, if all the Muslims kick off, or, you know, if 2% of them kick off, we can manage that. We can keep a cap on it. So, you know, I mean, let's just throw them a bit of red meat, you know, just because they're a bit more reactive, you know, just throw them a bit of red meat, bit of leeway. Whereas nationalists, yeah, they're a lot slower burn. Takes a lot longer to wind them up and get them actually kicking off and going. But, you know, 1% of the British population you know, the indigenous British population, you know, it's 44 million roughly English people alone. You know, add another 10 million Scottish, Irish and Welsh people on top of that living in Britain. You know, you're talking about maybe 55 million people. You know, you could be talking 2.5 to 5 million people. Now, the government ain't real and understand that. And they don't want that. And that's why they come down so hard on it. Because they're terrified of it. You know, and this is why we see things like this. And it's not the only reason. There'll be other more nefarious reasons. There will be obviously people within the system who hate Britain. You know, there'll be outside actors influencing them. There'll be people, as we've seen with the Home Office, it's full of people from abroad, actual foreigners deciding on immigration cases. Like that, to me, is insane. Like, why would you let immigrants decide on immigration cases? Because they're going to clearly have their own personal views on immigration, aren't they? You know, I'm not saying that as a racist. It's just a fact. If I lived in a foreign country and I was deciding immigration cases, I'd be more favourable to immigration. Of course you would. Who wouldn't? This is just a fact of reality. But yeah, it's just this case. I think again, it just once again highlights just the two-tiered system and the actual what the state intends and what it prioritises. You know, it clearly prioritises foreigners over nationalists or ideologies, because you've got a man here, and all right, both of them have got foreign-sounding names to me. But burning a Quran is quite a you'd call it like a nationalist activity, for lack of a better word. You know, the government clearly views that as being worse than a man trying to stab him with a knife. You know, again, a foreign man trying to stab him, a Muslim foreign man trying to stab him with a knife. You take what you want from that. That's just my opinion. But anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks for viewing. Take care and goodbye.